Hi, I'm Priscilla, and yes, I get to draw letters on chalkboards and paint on windows, and people pay me. I can say I'm living my childhood dream. And my good friend Brian, I just felt a little slight emotional. So my good friend Brian once said, just keep doing what you love until you're being paid to be you. And I would say these words kind of sum up the last couple of years of my life. So, a little backstory. In my 20s, I was stuck with the idea that I needed to have a job to make money, and then art was my hobby. Because I've loved art, and I've been doing art since I was a child. But art always came second, and it was what I did on my free time. But working 2 or 3 jobs, at the end of the day, I had no free time, or I was too exhausted, and I lost touch with who I was, and I lost touch with my art for a really long time. And but in the meantime, mid-20s, I didn't know what I was doing for a living, but I was highly influenced by binge-watching Food Network, and food, working at the farmers markets, and I was cooking for myself all the time. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to culinary school, I'm going to learn pastry arts, and that's going to be my career. And while school was amazing, after school, things kind of didn't turn out the way I thought. And it was really hard to make that first step, and years kind of passed quickly, and guilt started settling in. But years later, in 2016, I was desperate to make art again. So, sometimes you just need a little ambition and Craigslist to change your life, right? And I went on Craigslist and I took a job as an artist assistant for this small company. It was run by 2 people, and it was called Paint the Town. So, suddenly I was doing art, and I was doing it with a community of artists, and it was inspirational, it was motivational. I really wanted to keep going down that path of doing more art, and I was really excited about it, and kind of had a wake-up moment. And I thought, okay, creating art isn't my hobby, and it isn't my pastime. It's like my purpose. It's what I was. It's who I was since I was a child, and it was this big question. The answer was staring at me right in the face. So I started being more artistic again, and on a more regular basis. And I started really believing and trusting in my art, and I started thinking like an entrepreneur. Brian's been such a big influence in that. And living in New York, there's just endless opportunities out there. And I started the hard way. I started the hustle, doing cold calls, door to door, showing my face, and which is what I still kind of do nowadays, especially moving to a new place. So I took on lots of gigs and lots of projects, and Starbucks became one of my clients, and New Balance as well. And then coming on to Bozeman, I took on lots of projects here, as Amy told you, doing lots of windows and chalkboards. So it's what I've been practicing, it's what I know, and I really love that it's a public thing, because I get to be in the face of the public and talk to people and hear stories. And I feel so much joy that I'm being paid to be me. And I can look back now and connect all the dots and see what the bigger picture was. I can look back to when I thought, why, what's the point of me creating all this art for them? And what I mean is, when I was just working, one of the jobs was a barista at Starbucks. And so I did create lots of chalkboards for them while I was working there. And in the time, it didn't make sense. I just did it for fun. But now I can look back and I'm like, wow, I had 7 years of practice. That's a long time under your belt. And nowadays, since I've had so much practice, I can squeeze in a ton of work, in such a short span of time. So this last trip to New York City, because I fly back to New York City to do work for them and do work for other clients, I flew in on a Tuesday at 3 p.m. and then I worked 14 hours on that Wednesday, and then by Thursday at 3 p.m. I was back in the airport to come to Bozeman. And I must have done 20 plus gigs in that time. And I feel like working, or the way that my life has been, like living in New York City, working at a coffee shop during the New York City morning rush hour, and I also had jobs as line cook in restaurants. So just like working under pressure has been something that I've been practicing, working really fast and having speed and being efficient. That kind of comes through with the way I do work now, even with my art. Let me show you a video. Let me just do this. I'm going to hit escape. It's just a 1-minute clip, and it's like a recap of the last time I was in New York, which was February.
We hope you had a pleasant flight. We look forward to welcoming you again on another United flight.
This trip was jam-packed with work.
So I think it's really important for me to kind of have that change of scenery. You know, I'm out here in Bozeman, and like while going on a hike, and just being like submerged in nature is really great for reflection and thinking. And obviously, it's so easy to find beauty in nature and be present. Then it's also really good for me to do the complete opposite and go to this like really high energy place where there's tons of creative energy, tons of people, like this mishmash and like art everywhere. And you know, I had some clips of like street art and like really cool messaging. And so I grab inspiration from all of that too. And it's really cool. So, and let me tell you about my bike. So when I work in New York City, I usually ride my bike everywhere. And it's basically me, my chalk markers, and my bike. And I find that putting myself in uncomfortable situations, kind of like this one, or riding the bike and facing fears and overcoming obstacles, often really helps my creative process. Not only am I present and alert, but I get scared when I bike. You know, I get angry, lots of road rage, pedestrians jumping in front of you. You almost get doored every time, or a big truck just kind of whizzes by so close. Trust me, somehow all of this helps. And when I go to New York City, which is quite often now, I usually stay in Queens with a friend, which means I get to have my favorite bike ride almost every day, which is going over a bridge. And I really like the metaphor that is. And you know, I can see myself working towards a goal, and we work so hard just to get to the middle, to get to the high point, and then it's the reward, like the instant reward. This probably takes 10 minutes to get up there, and then 2 minutes and you're done. And it's like so fun. I try to stand, or you know, you let your legs out, and you kind of feel like you're playing in that moment, and you feel, or I get in touch with the child that I am, which I also think is really important. So one of my favorite lettering artists, Lauren Home, she said, "Your work is the sum of everything you've loved." And I find that biking really helps me absorb my environment, seek beauty in my surroundings, appreciate the cool breeze, soak in the sun, appreciate my legs, my breath, my body, and feeling gratitude and feeling joy is also so important while living my creative life. I feel like that really helps me keep moving. It can be really hard some days, but when you have that collected joy and gratitude and all those moments that can help you from a lump that you might feel like sometimes. And so now I'll take you back to Bozeman and tell you a little story about what I'm doing kind of more currently. And so I had this idea a couple months ago that I wanted to teach art classes, which I've never done before. But I wanted to bring more art to the community. And I feel like one of the most important things that I can do as a creative, as an artist, is to kind of give other people a gentle nudge to be creative and to be in touch with their art. So much of the art that I create, like I said, is public. And people want to talk to me about their lives. And they want to tell me they miss art, or it's been a really long time, and they'll take out their cell phone and they'll show me like something they painted 20 years ago, and they're like, oh, I miss it. I don't know why they're not doing it still, but, or they think that their art isn't good enough, or they look at mine and they want to compare, and they're just like, I could never, but it seems like they have a strong desire, or they're missing something. So it's sad to hear this because I believe everybody is creative, and I know that we all have an artistic mind, and we all have that. Some of us are just in different parts of our creative journey and like finding our creative self, or remembering our creative self. So I created an art workshop called Let's Create, and I've teamed up with Knife Bistro, so it happens there, and I've done a couple of classes, and sometimes I teach, or sometimes I hire and invite a fellow artist to come teach. And next one is this Monday, April 15th, from 7 to 9 p.m. I'll show you a clip, 1-minute clip of, this was the second class, and I taught a watercolor galaxy class.
So you can use several different things to do the splatter. There's gouache, which is like watercolor, except it's opaque.
So, while I offer lettering, chalkboard art, window paintings, murals as part of my services, I always try to find various creative endeavors and passion projects, right? I paint with watercolors at home, I cook my own meals every day, I taught a class, a high school class, well, high school students. That was interesting. I bake pies, and maybe some cakes sometimes, and desserts, and cinnamon rolls. Just go crazy. Pasta, it's so fun to get creative in the kitchen, I think. And finding ways to get creative, especially outside my comfort zone, is really important. And basically the way I look at it now, like my mindset has changed, and my art isn't my job, and it isn't what I do for a living. I see it as living a creative life. And my day-to-day can be so spontaneous and so varied, and I've become very adaptable to change and open to saying yes to creative opportunities and invitations. So in closing, I ask you this: how are you including creative opportunities in your life? And is your daily routine allowing for room to have spontaneous play, to be curious, to practice overcoming fears, and to challenge your artistic mind?
questions you have for Priscilla?
When you're doing window mural like Downtown Bozeman, is there a conversation where the shop owner is like, this is what I want you to paint, or are you like, this is what I see on this window, or is it some combination of, hey, I want a mountain, like, what is that?
It's actually all of those, or one of those, all the time. Like, it changes, every situation is different, but I usually try, like, the goal is to get the creative freedom, right? Because it's not as exciting for like, hey, paint a bobcat on there, which I kind of get all the time. And so the goal is to have the creative freedom, so, you know, I'll try to kind of manipulate the conversation in that way. Or at least, I mean, most of the time, you know, they see the kind of work I do, and I have a couple of different styles, and there's like 2 specific styles that are really different that I enjoy both. Like, I have this really whimsical style that's like more cartoony that you can see at like Red Tractor Pizza, where there's like cartoons, like characters, which for me, characters are kind of hard to draw. Like, drawing cartoons and characters are hard, so I enjoy that challenge. Or something more landscapey, like mountains, like you see at Jam Windows. That one's more painterly with brush strokes, and I just go crazy with color, and that's also really fun. So, I mean, they see the kind of style I have, and usually they're calling me because they want that style, and that's what I hope that they want. If they're telling me they want like this other thing, then I'm like, I mean, I'll still do it. But the goal is to have my style and freedom and creativity. Yeah.
Did you prepare examples of your work to show us, or like on the computer?
Yeah, do you want to show us on Instagram?
Instagram.
Okay, so I have your
Here we go,
Priscilla
here we go.
Perez.
Yeah. But, all right, well, here's your, this is not art, well, it is art. But this was for fun.
Wow.
That's a pie.
You're incredible.
I made Priscilla's birthday. But it's just right there. Here's a chalkboard, Starbucks.
What kind of style would you say that falls under for you?
Well, the chalkboards are different than, like, you know, they're very different from the windows, kind of. There's a lot more lettering, and I mean, all my lettering is freehand. And, I mean, if they want me to do a menu board with all these words, that's the worst. But I'll do it. Masking tape is your friend. I don't like rulers and measuring. But,
What's been your most interesting collaboration so far?
interesting.
That was surprising to you?
I would say Red Tractor Pizza. Yeah, working with them has been like really cool. Like, because I have so much inspiration to draw from them. They're so funky, eclectic, and like Adam is just so free and open-minded. And I mean, he has like 2 words to say to me, and then he's like, have at it.
Go.
And so he just like, he placed so much trust in me, which feels really good. I just worked on a chalkboard with him, so that's new because I've only been doing their windows. Because obviously they have so much art inside. And yeah, one of his cooks inside, he's like, why don't you can you draw Adam on the chalkboard? Oh, challenge accepted. And so Adam had no idea, and I texted him and I'm like, okay, the job's done, you know, send the payment. And then he's like, oh, send me a picture. And I was like, why don't you just come in tomorrow and see it? So yeah, that was a fun surprise. See you tomorrow.
Did you work on the mural?
The mural.
On Red
I helped Kat with it. I really enjoyed like what the concept was and the idea, and like as a community coming together. You know, that was the first project that I heard of like that, and I was like, heck yeah, I'll be in there, and I'll give you my hands. So that was fun to be a part of that way, for sure. There's a bobcat. That was done freehand as well, like, you know, stencil.
How do you promote yourself?
So using my Instagram handle is like my #1 way so far, because I have a lot of my work on here, and because my email address and phone number is on there, so if somebody wants to hit me up directly, I mean, it really works. Since I do work for Starbucks, a lot of work for Starbucks, there's obviously a Starbucks like every 2 blocks, right, in New York City. So tons of eyes are coming to see my stuff. And so, I'll just click on one more. So, you know, I'll get this guy, he DMs me, and he's like, hey, I own this furniture place down in Soho, and we have this A-frame, and I'm standing in line waiting to get myself a coffee, and I'm thinking, man, like, I don't know any chalkboard artists. And then he looks up, and it was like, oh, you know.
Starbucks lets you put your handle on their things? Oh, wow, that's awesome. That's great.
Anyone I do work for will let me.
Right.
Yeah. The next job I have, the next project will be with Backcountry Burger Bar. They have like that big chalkboard mural on their wall. I mean, I've been eyeballing them since I moved here. I was like, hey. And they were kind of like, nah. But finally, they kind of came around like a whole year and a half later. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. So next week I'll be out there working on that.
So Bozeman and New York City are kind of bipolar in this wonderful way. How did you get from New York to here?
Well, the quick story is I worked a seasonal job for 6 months near Yellowstone back in 2016, and kind of like being born and raised in New York City for years, I needed to get out. And you know, in my 20s, being stuck just working, not finding like what I really wanted to do, I was like, I just need to get out of here. This is overwhelming. When you know all these people are doing all this cool stuff, and you're just like, what am I doing here? And so in 2016, I took a break, came out here, worked seasonal. It was the first time I went on a hike, like and saw the mountains, and it wasn't just like a picture in my calendar. And that was really cool. But I made my way up to Bozeman for a couple of months, and I stayed with a friend. And I worked at Saffron Table for those 2 months. And Bozeman was, it just, you know, when you get that gut feeling like you kind of belong somewhere, or it feels good to be there. So I shared with all these like good feeling thoughts with my best friend Brian at the time, and still, but we were both living in New York City, and he was my roommate. So we both had this grand idea of just moving out here when our lease was up in 2017. So, and then we bought a car, we did an 8-day road trip, and that was it. So yeah, as a person, I'm like really adaptable and flexible, and you know, I can just kind of survive, and I mean, that's what I'm seeing. So it's really cool. I guess I'm a Gemini, so there's that too.
But don't you think there's a similar grittiness in Bozeman that you find in New York City as well?
Yeah, I feel like this is like a tiny, tiny little neighborhood in Brooklyn. It's not like a couple of blocks.
When you travel back and forth for your commissions, do they pay your airfare, or do you have to figure that all in your pricing?
That is the goal one day. But yeah, I figured out all the pricing. Yeah, I've paid anywhere from like $200 round trip to New York City, or $1,300 round trip. Then I heard from a friend it costs like $1,350 round trip to go to India. It's like, ah!
What's your #1 recommendation, Priscilla, for someone who really wants to cultivate a creative practice and has pushed all of that aside for years, for career, family, whatever reason? Like, how do you get back in?
How do you get back in?
Or just get it going? Like, I'm looking at those little moons. I think I could draw a moon.
Just kind of either take a class, maybe. That'd probably be the easiest way, because there's a whole group of people and someone's kind of guiding you, and materials are provided, so you're not really investing in all this stuff. Because it's, I'm sure many of us know, it's easy to invest a ton of money in a bunch of supplies, and then you're like sitting on all this stuff. And just being open and just like start saying yes. Yes is like a big thing, I think. You know, and even if it's scary, like bigger reason to say yes, right? I mean, for me, it was taking that job on Craigslist. I think that's what really started my my push for like, oh wow, I really want to do art like full time, like all the time. And so once that happened, and everybody's life is different, and everybody's like creative journey is different, so whatever that first moment is, I feel like as long as you kind of try to keep that momentum is going to be important too. So.
Does it ever get disheartening that you're sort of working in this very temporary medium? Like you finish a giant chalkboard and realize someday someone's just gonna wipe it off with an eraser?
Well, I mean, I think that's also the beauty in it, right? Because nothing is forever, everything's temporary. And so that's like reflected in my work. And I also think it's really cool that I get to change it again. And it keeps evolving. And I keep doing my practice in this one, hey, hopefully they're a returning client. So once I've started the relationship, I just keep building it. And otherwise it would be, a permanent mural on a wall, and then, okay, how many more walls to, keep finding new. That's exhausting. And also, it kind of connects me with my dad a lot, because another little story is my dad was a graffiti writer back in the 80s and 90s in Brooklyn. And so his love for putting letters on walls and on all these things that could come down, or it won't be forever. I mean, I'm sure none of this stuff is up anymore. But I feel, there's that. I'm like, Dad, check out this window I did, or check out this wall I did, or check out this chalkboard with permission that I did. And so, I'm sure the whole thing of my dad's really proud of me, and because he's also the first, one of my biggest first influences with art, teaching me how to form letters, kind of understanding letters in a way that no other 7-year-old would understand a letter. So.
Yeah, a comment on kind of what you're talking about is that the greatest people in history don't get remembered until after they've died. So that's kind of the beauty of being great at what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then as long as I'm not doing the erasing, because that pains.
I guess just speaking of you doing erasing, so you brought up, how many times do you make a mistake and have to erase half of your work or something like that?
Actually, probably 0.5%.
That's a lot better than I do.
I feel like a lot of my process is, a friend of mine called it improv, because I'll show up to a project with a good idea at least on I go to Red Tractor and I know that I'm going to do these pizza slopes, and I know I'm going to do a moose and a bison, and they're going to be skiing, but I don't know what color the sweater is going to be, or how this pizza is really going to look, or certain things I'm really unsure of, but that's okay. I just show up and I start, and once I start, then I kind of start making a bunch of decisions all at once, and I think that's a really fun part of it too. You're just trusting yourself, and you're making all these decisions and problem solving all at once. So.
How long did it take to trust yourself to do that?
I know. I mean, like I said, I've been making art since I was a child, and I went to an art high school, and I've been doing art, but for a long time it was oh, she's just saying that this looks good to be nice to me. That was the biggest line in my head. These people are just being nice to me. This doesn't look that great. But then after I started, working for this other person, and then I just, to this day, every once in a while, it's I'm not sure how this looks. We always second guess and critique ourselves really hard. But it's whatever, they're gonna love it. It's fine. So yeah, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yes. Much more practical, less deep question. So I have chalkboards all over my house that we play and design on, but we can never get chalkboard marker all the way out of them. You can see stuff from years ago. What's your best method for getting chalkboard marker out of a chalkboard?
You're talking about ghostwriting.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the surface. I find that magic eraser is pretty magical.
Oh, okay.
That Mr. Clean stuff. And that usually works. But like I said, it depends on the surface. If you have a chalkboard that's with chalk paint, maybe you created it, Chalk paint is usually water-based, so it's an acrylic. So you're gonna go in there with the magic eraser and magically erase the chalk paint as well. And then there's porcelain, which is like the real chalkboard chalk material. That's gonna be your best bet. And then there's some chalkboards that are kind of like made out of slate or something, and that's very porous. So that's drinking up all your chalk marker and like loving it. So that's gonna be like one of the hardest to take off as well. So it's kind of cool.
Thank you.
I've come across all those.
Those are connected to hers. So like, is there a particular kind of marker you recommend that doesn't ghost you?
Yeah, the marker is not the problem.
It's not, okay.
No, yeah.
It's the surface.
Yeah, I mean, chalk ink is my go-to, which I buy online. But then Posca makes some. But at Michael's you can find, there's 2 different brands. They work fine too. They're probably not going to be as opaque, but they do the job. Also, it depends on how long your art has been sitting on there. Like if it's a whole month later, you're trying to erase it, it might be harder. If you quickly make a mistake, that's because you can take it off.
Do you actually use chalk?
Very seldomly.
Pastel.
Like hardly. There's one Starbucks that's like a reserve bar that's super fancy, and they like the chalk look. So it's like, yeah, the actual chalk stick. So I'm there with the chalk, but it's so dusty, and I really enjoy the chalk marker. I like the look. It's more bold. It's visually more appealing to me, but once in a while.
Do you ride your bike here or just in New York City?
I do ride my bike here. I think I really like riding on Church Avenue in Sourdough that way. That's like my favorite ride. And it is really cool to kind of just, I mean, it's open, but it's definitely very different than riding in New York City. It's not as thrilling, and you don't get in touch with all these different emotions and anger and joy. And
Do you hold on to the back of the UPS truck?
I always wear my helmet.
I think we have one more question in the back there.
Okay.
How do you paint on glass?
So I use water-based paints so that, I mean, they're as permanent as the store owner wants it to be, as long as no one scratches it off, because sometimes people just want to, oh, I wonder if this comes off. As long as people don't scratch it off, and as long as they're not trying to wash it off with water, it will stay. But it comes off with a wet towel and rag. So I usually I mix, it's a little formula of mixing acrylic paint and tempera paint. This tempera is very translucent and is very loose and watery. So by itself, it's not going to look as good. And then acrylic paint is way too stiff, and there's maybe this one line you're trying to paint, and it'll be like, it'll take you forever. So I mix both of them together to get the right viscosity and to get almost a translucent but opaque look. So it's acrylic and tempera.
So, trying to work this. You seem to have a lot of experience in technique. You've been doing this for a long time, as you said. Can you speak to that a little bit about experience in technique and where you find confidence in yourself, in your work, and knowledge?
Yeah. So, like it would be hard for me to sit with someone and teach them technique or to verbally talk about technique, because while I learned technique and stuff like that in high school, that was like way long ago, but I find that just doing and figuring out your own way, like how you want to manipulate the paint, how you want to use this paintbrush or whatever it is, like it's kind of you figuring out this tool and how to manipulate it to get what you want. So as long as you practice and do, I feel like you can find like your own technique or your own way to use things.
Time spent.
Time spent.
We're actually going to wrap up, but thank you guys.